Hey Ron, for Morgan Moses and Brandon Sheriff, is there anything you need to see through pregame warmups or practice today or anything like that for their questionable status?
I love the question, trying to get the answer right away. Just so you know, they're still listed as questionable.
Okay, I figured.
All right, thank you.
Ron, has Cam Sims showed enough to be that so-called number 2 receiver? I mean, what do you still want to see from him in these final 4 games?
Oh, the consistency of it all. He's done a great job, and if he plays consistently like that, yeah, most certainly. I mean, the young man has done nothing but get better this year and improve, and he works hard at his game. And again, as we continue to go forward, if he continues to play consistent, most certainly. I mean, the guy's doing a great job for us. I got a little bit of ways to go, to get there, I believe. But I think the guy has an opportunity.
Ron, to piggyback off that question, I think you've mentioned once or twice this year that you've been kind of maybe surprised about the receiver group as a position as a whole. How have your thoughts evolved on that, and where do you feel like the group as a whole is at?
Well, I don't know if I'd say surprised as much as I've been pleased with them in terms of the development and growth. We felt strong about the young guys because if you go back to the beginning of the year, as we've seen guys make plays and step up, they've gotten more opportunities and more opportunities. That has been very pleasing just because of the fact that, we were concerned, obviously, because it was a very young group, and they've done nothing but get better. So that's been excellent. And as a group, I think going forward, it's still one of those things that if there's an opportunity to add maybe one more veteran guy, we might be inclined to do it. But and knowing the fact that we'll get Kelvin Harmon back next year, you feel pretty strongly about who they are.
Hey, Ron, I think it's been about 3 weeks since Jaron Christian went on IR. Just curious if there's any sense of how he's recovering, and what have you learned from your other tackles in his absence?
Well, he's progressing well from what I understand. His rehab's been good. Because of the new protocols, all the IR guys have to come in at different times. And so we're typically, in meetings or on the practice field when these guys are getting their treatment or their workout. So we don't get a chance to see him. So I'm really relying on the reports I get daily. But they tell me he's doing well. He's coming along. And, what we've learned from our other tackles is we've got a good group of depth. I mean, and some guys are showing that they're more than willing or prepared to compete for starting positions. I mean, what we've gotten from Sharp, what we've gotten from Lucas has been excellent, and we've got a couple of young guys at guard that give us the same kind of depth, same thing with our center. So, we're very happy, feel very fortunate to have the players we have right now.
Hey, Ron, can you tell, you've had teams that have gone on some roles and all that. Can you feel as a coach when they're playing with a different level of confidence, and what happens because of that?
Well, I do feel, we're playing with confidence. One of the things that you try to fight against is being overconfident. And that's a little bit of concern. And so I talked about this week with the guys just to make sure. But sometimes if you get it right and they're playing really well, they'll win a lot of games. On the inverse, if they're overconfident and don't show up with the right attitude, then it goes the other way.
Ron, a lot of teams do. San Francisco certainly does. You guys do run, stack, and bunch formations. From a defensive perspective, what's the hardest part about reading that and handling it and handling something like that? And how do you kind of go about? How do you think it's best to kind of attack something like that?
Well, the biggest thing more than anything else, you got to communicate. You've got to make sure you talk about, how you're gonna handle it. If you're gonna put a guy at the point, to jam the guy at the point, and then read off the other two. If you're gonna have the guy jam at the point, and he's got the back guy, which of the two back guys does he have? Are you gonna play different levels? I mean, it just, a lot of it depends on what routes they run out of the stack more so than anything else as well. Where's your help? So if you have help in a certain position, you've got help outside, what's your leverage? You got help inside, what's your left? There's a lot of ways to try and play it.
So it'll just vary how you guys defend it based on how obviously the opponent likes to deploy it, I guess.
Exactly. And what leverage technique we're using.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Ron, how much do you look at or evaluate the guys on the other side of the field as potential free agents or just additional talent for the future? I mean, is that really a focus during the game? Do you go back and look at that stuff?
A lot of that happens after the game when you're watching the tape, and you may see a guy that you go, wow. Then you look on the sheet and it says, it'll say third or fourth year or fifth year, and you start wondering, okay, well, what's his contract status? And then I might look that up. That's happened a few times, just trying to wonder, like the guy at the position, it's like, I wonder what his status is. So there is a little bit of that, but honestly, that really doesn't kick in until Monday or, Tuesday when I'm going through the tape again, just to see.
In weird years like this, where there's not a ton of in-person opportunity, do these games for evaluating, future talent, do they become more important?
They do, and really they won't kick in until you start getting ready for free agency, and then you start looking up the games and say, okay, what games is this guy playing? Oh, he's on a team that we played against, so you would want to watch guys against your team just so because the talent level of the player they're playing against.
Take 2 or 3 more.
Hey, Ron, going back to the confidence question, all that, when your teams get in a row, you've had those teams. How often have you seen your teams do that? And again, do you just get a feel for there is a good mindset here?
You get a feel for it just because of what you see, what's happening around you. But like I said, now, one thing you always worry about is that overconfidence. In 2013, we got a nice roll. We went into New Orleans a little overconfident, and they smacked us pretty good. So you worry about those things going into games just because, you never know. I mean, you could have a great week of practice and all of a sudden you get beat. You have a terrible week of practice, you're scared of it, and your guys play lights out. It's interesting because last week against Pittsburgh, even though, it was a little bit longer, obviously, but every day I just felt like, God, these guys are on point. So you always think about those things.
Ron, in that same vein, current and former players talk about how you kind of are really good at putting the blinders on them and getting them to focus in. And I wonder if you do or say anything other than, be where your feet are. Like, is there any, techniques to remind them like, hey, we have to zone in here or we have to stay focused here?
Well, one of the mantras I use is, hey guys, this is the most important game we're about to play. And the reason is because it's the one we're about to play. I mean, to me, it's that simple. Is that if you focus on it, one thing that I did this week was I talked about, hey guys, what we did on Monday was amazing. It was really proud of the way you guys played, but it's not going to help us when we show up on Sunday. So get past it and let's start focusing in on this game, the task at hand. This is what our intent is coming into this game. So I try to put everything into this game.
Last one.
Ron, I know some things about this trip to Arizona is different, obviously leaving on Saturday.
Chris, you muted yourself.
Ron, sorry about that. I know you said some things about this trip to Arizona are different because of the rescheduling. Last week, you said you did some different things, I think, to handle complacency. In general, are you a superstitious guy? Are you a guy that believes in some stuff when karma or mojo is kind of going in a different way to kind of do something different just to change it up for guys?
I do believe in karma. I'll tell you that much right now. As far as mojo, yeah, you try to keep a certain type of routine. I will say this, I kind of joke a little bit with Paul Kelly and tell him I don't want to stay in loser hotels and stuff like that. It's I honestly, sometimes I say stuff like that just to break the tension because sometimes we get wound up and we get so bound up on things. We changed this flight this week just because it was late for one reason, and so it also gave us a little more time here, because we played on Monday night and we stayed at the extra day here. We were able to stay as close to our schedule as possible.